Situated.
We'll call this meeting to order at 6:02 p.m. and start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll just remind folks again that if you are speaking, do so into your mic. And also, we've been requested to have everyone wear a mask properly while they're here, for those who have been following the state law. Call the roll. Councilor Gray, present. President Majerus Collins.
Here.
Councilor Pettengill.
Here.
President Hill.
Here.
Selectman Wren.
Here.
President Stephanie.
Here.
Councilor Ward.
Here.
Councilor Warren.
Here.
Councilor Walker.
Yeah.
Resident Pelletier.
Here.
City Manager Crowe.
Here.
President Davis.
Here.
Selectman Nichols.
Here.
So we continue to have a vacancy in District 7. There are 13 folks here tonight for the record. We do not have a person for District 7 vacancy, so we'll move on to agenda item number 5. Consideration of the September 23rd, 2020 Budget Committee meeting.
You accept it, we accept it.
Have a motion?
Second.
Have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Abstaining? 2 abstain. Okay, we'll move on to our budgets and revenues. We'll start with the Emergency Management Agency. Ms. Molina is going to give us slightly more detail of the presentation. So I think I explained before that at the budget presentation to the county commission, Ms. Molina was up first, and so they took line by line out of her budget, whereas other departments, they kind of gave anything from 5,000, anything from 10,000 for budget. And so, in fairness to her, I think during her original presentation and seeing maybe it might be appropriate to give her more latitude, that seems appropriate.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm just gonna give the same narrative, and then we can go through the lines. So, Angela Mino, Director of Inkstone County Emergency Management Agency, here to present the department's budget this evening to Budget Committee. Essentially, the department is in the same budget position as the previously year at 2019-225. The only real change is that we're requesting a new vehicle, which actually, I'll cut that. But our leasing and for eliminating line items, we were able to keep the budget increase to 259. This is an increase of 0.99%. And then I asked if there were any questions. Now, looking at the line, and considering the adjustments the commissioner made, I would ask that.
Ms. Molina?
Yes.
It's actually a question, or is it we're going along?
Thank you. You said what was the bottom line again?
I'm asking the same amount as the year previous.
How much?
219, 225.
The actual commission's vote, how much?
297.
Well, that's 259. Actually, it's 259.
$259. There's actually a difference of $259.
Very,
From last year to the next year.
Yeah.
thank you.
By reducing and eliminating other budget lines, I was able to keep it just about the same, the difference being $259. But considering the need for a reduction, I agree with most cuts. The truck, furniture line. What I'd ask though is that my electricity line, 10-10-10-4305, is increased to the amount that I proposed. This is based on 20 expenses and 3% adjustment to account for inflation. And we pay for 25% of the listed fire station's electricity consumption. And I'm concerned that at the reduced amount, that we would go in red.
Ms. Manager, comments?
So just for clarity, we're talking $180 on
Yeah. Yep.
I would make a motion to
Second.
$180.
I have a motion and a second, any discussion? Mr. Titus?
Thank you. I guess I'm looking at 2019 spending. Electricity, I'm not sure. I guess we had some rate increases that have affected us there.
It's not the rate, it's,
There's no real inflation
charge.
with power. It's the walk on the rates we don't, so it's not like inflation or anything. Just the cost, the rate is the rate.
So it's an increase,
You use it?
and it's delivery charge.
Can I take a stab at that?
That's
This is a cart that actually goes around and around our office and goes and actually sends the invoice to the fire department, ultimately they take 20% of. There, on any given bill, there's the demand to what you're saying for the third-party provider is, and then there's the CMP portion for delivery. There has been an increase annually for the portion for the CMP, plus probably increase in the actual consumption of that location, rather than the cost of the paying 25%. Right, cool. So well, I say the fact is that I set the power plant up with main power and Constellation. There's no decrease in what they're charging us per kilowatt. But the CMP is actually charging you an increase to actually deliver that to the location. You still have an increase at that location, as well as consumption potentially increase at That is true, but it's more, on average, it averages somewhere between 2 and 3% increase annually that actually is passed on to the consumer, unfortunately.
This is what we try to figure out. It is people, yeah. That's one, that's the thing, that's not the third party that we can choose, the person that has a lot of organizations are paying more because they're not meeting the standard offer, they're proposing somebody else to the billing part of it.
Correct.
And so that can fluctuate based on who you choose.
Well, I see who goes and chooses, and I pay
We
my
pay the
percent.
same, whatever they,
Mhm.
they've been continually going up from year after year after year.
Mr. Carl?
Did you say you're paying a percentage of the overall bill for the parks?
Yeah, for utilities, yep.
Is there a possibility to look into changing out so that your space is actually metered? I know we did this for the 911 center a few years ago.
We actually discussed this last year during the budget committee. We did discuss that, with, was it yeah, what's his name?
He's the facility director.
Facility director for the city of Worcester.
What was their answer?
Hmm?
What was their answer? You said you discussed it.
It never came to.
We were to build the distribution panel that is combined between the whole areas, so we have to put a separate panel to be able to meter it. It is possible.
Yeah, we did the same thing for the 911 center. It was an upfront cost, but then it was made saving after that. Because I'm assuming for your usage, it's probably not a percentage.
Yeah.
And it would be helpful.
Mr. Ray?
Is the percentage based on the square footage that's being used by installing, UNA?
It was,
In relation to the square footage of the entire building? Is that what the percentage is based on? Or?
no, I don't believe so. It's just 25% for all utilities other than sewer and water, which is at 12.5.
That's just a number that's in
It's a
the...
number.
Okay.
Set back in the numbers.
Councilor Walker?
Yes, did I hear that you were gonna hopefully get a new vehicle this year?
No, we're gonna stretch that.
You're gonna scratch it?
Yep.
And here, if you don't mind, it says, I think that this year to date, you've spent like 130 or so dollars, and, or at least it says 38 for repairs, and they're saying the commissioner is saying the budget is 2,000.
I think that was to make up for any repairs that might occur. That's what they did, to offset the elimination of the vehicle.
Well, I would like to suggest, if you don't mind, that we take the 180 off the 2,000 and put it on your $4,000, so make it the 4,180. I'd like to put that out there as a suggestion.
Is that a motion to amend the motion on the table? I can take it as such. It was a second. Oh, I heard real excited. So, amend by substitution to take 180 from line 4210, place it into 4305. Motion by Councilor Walker, seconded by Mr. Pettis. Mr. Pettis.
And I'm going to the discussion, I'd like to ask, Administrator Close to look into that idea of looking at what that 25% means. If it's 25% of the entire station house, and everything around it, that seems like it's a lot of power. Either meter it, or find a way to have a little bit less. That seems like 1/4 of the entire station's electric hours seems a bit high.
I would just add to that, Mr. Pettis, as well. They're there 24/7 and you are using it 40 hours a week. I'm sure you're
Yeah, I mean, that's
saying.
one part of usage, so that's the money.
Mr. Ray.
From the actual square footage that you are actually using within the structure itself.
I don't know where I looked at that, but my understanding was that they just split 25%.
All right, I understand that.
Yeah,
It's
based on actual numbers.
equity, the town.
Mr. Gutierrez.
So I want to ask, you were initially looking at getting a new vehicle this year.
Yes.
possibility of chipping away at the money that was budgeted for repairs, which was only budgeted because the commissioners are not willing to fund a new vehicle that you really thought in preparation of the budget you needed. Is that a fair characterization?
Yeah. Mr.
How
Pettis?
old is that vehicle then?
4 years?
Huh?
4?
I was under the impression that we were buying a vehicle that would eventually become a sheriff's department's vehicle at one time and just move them through, start with you and then move it in after a certain length of time and not doing that anymore.
I believe that was the agreement, with the previous director, but it didn't work out. They needed the vehicle, you needed the vehicles before the actual vehicle was paid for. And I don't know how that happened, but it did. Is that, you needed the vehicles before?
We need vehicles every year.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right, every other year, the ENA vehicle will go to the sheriff's department, because you have it first and then, obviously, because of the benefit, the federal benefit we get when we purchase the vehicle through
Yeah.
ENA.
That was the agreement?
But that's not being done anymore, so.
Well, we can't give away a vehicle without replacing it.
No, that's what I'm saying, that's why
Yeah.
we're not replacing it, we decided we're not gonna do that, we're not gonna pass vehicles on to the department, we're just gonna keep the vehicle. And there can't be that many miles, how many miles are on?
Oh, gosh. 5,000 maybe.
So, I mean, 4-year-old vehicle, 5,000 miles, I think repairs might not be as bad as you might think.
I don't believe so, but I'm not here.
Right, the motion on the table is to now amend the original motion. So this one is to take money out of line 4210 and put it into 4305. Any further discussion on that part? All those in favor?
Are we on the amendment to the motion?
We're going to get amended to the motion and roll. Sorry, folks. Mr. Lund, or is your, no, okay. And opposed? So we've got 11 for, 2 opposed. It carries forward, and now we address the original motion on that,
Which is the raise.
which is to raise the amount. But we just did that. So does everyone feel settled on that, or do we need to vote? Okay, so now we're at 4180 in the line of 4305. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
So the clarity here is, it's still a push for a zero.
But there's
One
no.
line went up, one line went down.
Right,
Yes.
that's correct.
Everything is voted. Looks unanimous. All right, any further questions for Ms. Nuna? You weren't finished with your presentation, were you? So please continue.
So in line 4306, again, I just asked for this return to the amount I requested, which was 2930. Again, that's line 4306.
Mr. Major responds.
I make a motion to add $130 to the airplanes.
No questions, discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Motion fails. Continuing on.
I request that office supplies be increased to the original request of $1,200. And that was that's line 5385.
Mr. Ward.
Angela, are you okay with telephone as $1,000 hit?
We won't get that cell phone.
I know you guys were actually working for Dave to actually separate something from the city associated with that. Does that have any indication associated with that cut?
No, we'll essentially save like $2 a month if we do that, we'll move it.
Okay.
So,
But it brings it in-house, it's
It brings it in-house under our control, and we save a few dollars, that's it. It's more for housekeeping than anything.
This is a cell phone, thank you.
Mr. Davis?
Hi, thank you. Just a question on the phones, I was curious, because I know the cell phones, that's pretty easy to figure that so many people have cell phone times, a monthly charge. But the rest of our phone system, again, to me, $5,000, $6,000 seems extremely high for the phone system. Do we have it as a computer-controlled phone system that's, can you give us a brief recapitulation of how complicated the phone system is to be $6,000 a year?
So, for the office phones, it's actually, $4,845. And then I was asking for an additional $1,800.
The office phones, I guess, is where I'd be interested in the brief synopsis.
So we have 3 copper lines,
3 what?
copper lines that come in from the street.
That's infrastructure, so we're renting those lines?
Yes, actually, we do get charged per line.
Yeah, we get charged per line, so we have three clock lines that we use, plus a couple, plus the fax line we are purchasing from this Lewiston, so there's 4. Then she also has a few other things that goes to her towers that she uses, those are considered a line. And those have different costs than just the phone line. So, it could be $50 a month, after 12, and then plus I don't know what she has on there. Those are just what I.
Yeah, $100 a month, you think?
About $100 a month, just for the stuff that I know of. Then I don't know what else that she has under there.
Fiber connections, Mr. Titus, running in the neighborhood of $140 a piece.
Yeah, per month.
And that she has 2 of them running to the tower, that eat up that cost pretty quick.
And then we have several phone lines in the office, our office phones, our EOC phones. We have a number of phones, and the rate, we worked on fast line, that was reduced, so we made some elimination, we have saved some money, as much as we could, so.
Office supplies? Mr. Jones?
I make a motion to $600 from $35 to supplies and requests.
A motion, do I have a second?
I'll second that motion, but I thought we were still on the other motion.
It wasn't a motion.
No, it was just a discussion. Yeah, there's a lot happening tonight. So the motion is to add 600 down to line 5335, office supplies. Any discussion or questions for Ms. Molina?
Can we, what kind of things go into office supplies? My concern is we're looking at having a major pandemic. To be things to be one, so what goes into that line?
I mean, it's pens, hanging folders, recording folder, archive boxes, which actually we need to archive quite a bit, it's very surprising. Taking all supplies that we need for staff, to continue, so.
So it's a general stuff, not.
It's a general office supply line.
Okay.
Further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Can you move it up for a little bit on the? Sorry about that. We will call that again. All those in favor? Sorry about that. We're getting some bites here. All those opposed? So right count at 6, 7, the motion passed.
I'm sorry, actually, we need to, go back to the phone line. Sure. If that's all right.
Yeah.
So 4315, I'm sorry, I didn't work this out before, so the 4845 takes care of the office phones, and then we have 2 cell phones at, $50 for 12 months. So that total would be $61.65. So that would be the 4845 for the office phones and $13.20 for 2 cell phones, and that's for the director and the deputy director, and we are on call, and that's how we get our, that's how people contact us when we're not in the office.
Mr. Davis?
cell phones has always been a negotiated thing. I know that all the budget committees that I've been on, there's always been like a chance to renegotiate $50 for a line. It seems a lot for a cell phone. I don't care who's using it. But if it's the bill is $100 a month divided by 2, that includes all charges, then I can maybe see that. Because when you want to do 1,800, it says $50 a line times 3. Is that really $50 per line that you're paying, or is it?
It's,
Because I mean, most line charges are $10 or $20 a month at the most, and you get a data charge.
these aren't normal,
Pardon?
these aren't normal cell phones.
Oh.
You're super cell.
I gotta hear about this.
So, I did round, it's like 45, 47 something a month, and not knowing if it is gonna increase, but we have, Dave could explain, it's like extra connectivity.
So when it comes to the cell phone world, there's like 4 or 5 different priorities. You and I are priority 4, which is pretty low on the scale. Her phones are considered priority 1. So if there's a real natural disaster, like when we have 9/11, her phones will work guaranteed, ours will not.
So we pay a little extra for that.
Yeah.
That's, makes sense.
Guaranteed.
Right. Oh, if there's reception.
But I thought we had, paid extra for like super duper reception too or something.
No.
All right.
There we go. All
It
right.
does seem to work out.
Thank you very much.
So that would,
So 6165.
thank
Would
you.
fulfill your contractual law.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, that's a contractual obligation.
Or I'm gonna get a motion to start Commissioner Collins.
I'm just trying to, so what we're talking about here is that an increase on 4315 up to 6165, just as though we already kind of have
Yes, to continue the service we have.
some.
The motion, do we hear a second? No? Further questions or discussion? So the motion is to add $510 to $511.
6165?
6165.
$511.
Yeah.
To line 4315. Any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Motion passes by 9-4. Sorry, really struggling today. Okay, so that line has been restored to 6165.
Yeah, just a point of clarification, that's really not, unless we 11, that's not really something that the commissioners have to, right? I mean, they recommend it, but it's not something they have to look at.
And I think what,
I just wanted to clarify, it was my understanding of the law that the 11 is just a custom.
It's a custom,
Yeah.
yes. 9 is a majority, 11 is a supermajority, and.
But ultimately, if we all said something, they can still tell us to,
Right, absolutely, yeah, we still have a final.
So the final budget we're sending to them is the stuff that is passed by majority.
and I would also point out we'll vote on this budget as a whole after we go through kind of these line items. So we'll see what that affects as well.
I just like to make a comment. I think to be in their shoes if we actually had a disaster and we didn't have those high priority phones to communicate with, emergency management and, the local, federal, and state officials. So.
All right, where are we heading next, Ms. Tina?
I'd like to go to 5345, this is printing and reducing. And so I ask that it is restored to the 2411 amount that I requested, and this is based on contractual obligations.
Ms. Manager,
Make a motion to restore $1,111 to
Second.
motion for Ms. Manager Collins, a second for Mr. Rennie. Questions, comments, Mr. Davis?
The contractual agreements, are they copied multi-year service contracts, is that what you're doing?
Yeah, it's, the cost for printing, the cost for maintenance, and the actual cost for the machine.
And that's all fixed bills that you're obligated to pay.
Yes.
Is that all of this 24 level, or is it just a portion of the copier charge? Because that's always drives me crazy when they come out and they see you come and you get a sign or a copy.
No, so actually that's, it's, I think I understand, it's, contractual, it's the payment, it never changes. The only thing that does change, is the photocopies. If we happen to copy more, then we get charged for that.
Over the, whatever you're included in on it. So what is that fixed price from?
Oh, so the copier is leased to own, it's a, and that is 1129. 1129, and then, let's see, 982 for maintenance of the printers, and then I budgeted $300 for photocopies.
So
And then 3% if we, I mean, that's like really low, like we're not actually producing a lot right now, and we didn't last year, so
yeah, so the 1129.
So that equates to,
$1,129 and $982 a year.
and 300
Then 300 is for copies.
copies, yeah.
To pay the photocopy vendor, or
That's something Dave worked out, or charge so much.
internal charge for copy paper?
Mhm.
That was an internal charge for copy paper or something?
For copies.
Dave, how's that work?
So copy paper itself is bought in bulk. Sandy will buy it, made by 10 boxes, and then sell it to the departments at cost. So we can buy it for free. Photocopiers, we're under an umbrella policy where we spend, I'm making up a number, don't hold me to it. Let's say $1,000 a month for the photocopiers for the usage of them, and then we disperse that based on how many departments will have. So they pay a portion that pays for toner and service. We have the same type of contract, it's a rollout contract for the printers. So we spend, let's say, $1,000 for printers, we have 40 printers, that gets divided out, and each department gets charged by the number of printers that they have. That covers all the toner and maintenance on them.
Is there a revenue line somewhere on all these internal charges? Or how's it handled when you do the deal?
That part I don't know.
Well, somebody pays the bill, so it's charged to that amount, and then there has to be a revenue stream to offset if you're charging internal.
Right,
I understand the concept.
No, I understand the concept. I just don't know how the treasurer department does that side.
Mr. Smith, Rockford, do you weigh in on that? Well, when the bill comes in, we typically allocate it out based on the percentage of what you should pay. But no revenue stream, we just divvy it out when
So the bill must be split up, the house department stays on a projected use. So there's no way of knowing how much
Based on how many devices the department's using, not based on usage.
Well, then we have a photocopy charge for how many photocopies. Because we have to report the number to the BEU.
Right, but that's under a contract, we pay, so whether she does 50 or 100, the umbrella price is the same.
Right.
But the departments will break it down by what they use out of it.
It does, I still don't quite understand all these internal charges, how they work.
Well, some departments may make big copies, other departments may make 500, so it wasn't really fair to charge the
But I understand, but if she's asking for $300 from taxpayer to pay a bill, then she's paying it theoretically to some internal account.
No, she pays it direct by the percentage. There's a spreadsheet that,
So his copy paper is divvied out by department, so she pays a percentage of the copy paper.
well, that's just, right, but you just went from copy paper to copiers to
The
printers.
$300 you're saying has to do, is that the overage charge or the BEU charges $300 on extra? just
I'm estimating that's how much it will cost for photocopies for an entire year,
From the outside vendor,
from the BEU company.
so that's where the 2,400. So that has nothing to do with their charge, or how they divvy out the sort of supply.
It's based on a percentage of use.
Okay.
Further questions about line 5345? Mr. Pelletier?
Just curious, what was the reasoning from the commission to have this line?
They needed to reduce the overall budget.
You know, it was, you're telling us it was contractual?
Yes.
Excellent.
The way that,
Go ahead, yeah.
she ran first that night, they had a goal to be able to get back to a zero budget, from what they clearly heard from other communities. So a budget that typically takes 15 minutes with an hour and 45. They quickly dispensed with that approach, going line by line and making directed cuts. They came up with a recommended budget cut on the division, for all divisions half of that. So this one was a little bit different. They, by way of example, they cut $18,000 on the budget, had to adjust the revenue stream associated with that, and then we had some of the other divisions that we had looked at in previous weeks that didn't have anywhere near those kind of cuts.
There were 22 motions, discussions, and votes on this budget. So, a unique process. Any further questions, Mr. Pelletier? Okay. So we were still talking about printing and reproducing in 1111. Any further questions? All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Could we also be sure that the revenue without is reflective of 50% of these increases?
We'll be heading there as soon as we finish up here.
Somebody's making note of it because that has to be happening.
Try my best.
Madam
And
Chair?
there he is.
What was the vote on that?
Oh, it was 12-1.
Thank you.
What you know, okay. All right. Moving on from there, where should we head next, Ms. Lorna?
So we spoke of the motor vehicle, we can wait a year for that. I understand cuts need to be made, so, one, it was to, keep with the agreement of turning over the car, so we're gonna ask for another vehicle, and, but we changed it up and we were gonna ask for a truck so that we could haul all of our trailers, because we couldn't do that with the current vehicle. And then also, we requested and were approved for a mobile command unit to be used by locals, county, and state as a resource. And this trailer is 8 by 24, so it's pretty substantial, and so that's why I thought it was necessary to ask for a truck, but we can wait because we're going to take a year for planning for that whole command.
Any more questions up there?
The computer software, I'm sorry. Line 7375, computer software and hardware equipment. So this takes care of the GIS annual maintenance fee of $1,500, and then we also pay $4,000 of credits. Credits, that means we can save things, share things, and in order to do that, they sell us credits, and so we feel like, $1,000 is good for that. And then also 2 laptops, and during the commissioners' review, they mentioned this was to replace laptops. It's not, it's to have laptops, because currently we have 2 laptops right now. If we ever had to shut down the EOC, we had 2 laptops. And, to work remotely, that means 2 of my staff wouldn't be able to work. And another point is, when things get back to normal, we bring our work with us and our laptops with us to meetings, and to do reviews and things like this. So each one of us would need a laptop. So this is not to replace laptops, this is to fill a void that we don't have currently. So I'm asking for the increase, or I'm asking for the original amount of $5,500.
Mr. Peterson?
We're looking at $2,000 to line 7%.
Yes.
Mr. Ward? Questions, comments?
Question.
Mr. Brown?
Have you looked at any, I know you have grants that you worked through, what have you done with those grants? We don't see those, we don't know what you're bringing in for equipment, but what have you allocated for equipment for EOC? And have you considered this would be for some of the Franklin?
Tables, chairs, monitors, we're actually like updating the EOC, and this too is a grant, 50% of this is paid for. 50% of expenditures are reimbursed through a grant, federal grant, UNDG. And so we are slowly moving towards taking more of the HSGP monies for ourselves to update the EOC. But I want to be careful with that because money I take to use to us means less money for the communities. So I take a little bit at a time because those communities also need that money. The fire departments, police departments, EMS, public works, things like that.
Further questions? Mr. Davis?
I guess I want to have a brief discussion about this whole line, computer software. It shows that 2019 budget is zero, extended to zero.
Mm-hmm.
Then the 2020 budget is $1,800, but then we spent in 2020 so far, it's $9,000. It wasn't even in the budget.
That
Now
actually.
we're dropping down to $5,500.
Mm-hmm.
What is that $9,000? What was $1,800? Why do we go from zero to now spend $10,000 a year?
That was actually something that hadn't been corrected yet. That was supposed to be put against the previous budget year. Because there was a savings in salary, we received approval to update the equipment, the computer equipment. So we used that it was actually applied to the wrong year. It's not accurate and it needs to be fixed before now.
Because it happened after the year was closed, it went here with the revenue also came in here. So the revenue and expense are increasing.
So I guess the 1,800 is the budget, so you probably really in reality you're at that level or a little bit. So
I think I ended up spending like 2,000. I went like a little over because I can't remember now, but things ended up being slightly more. But yeah, it was like 7,000 something. That was put against that line.
So I'm just wondering if the 2020 budget is $1,800 and you've got 3,500 of commissioners, that should build in your balance, I would think, or close. And that's what they're thinking. We went from zero to 1,800, and now we're going to 3,500.
No, we didn't have we didn't purchase the GIS. Application, well, you actually use different funding for that.
Okay.
And that's actually a tool we use to aid or to assist municipalities, actually other than Lewis and Arvin, because they're far superior than us. They have a much better program and staff for their GIS stuff. So this will be the first year purchasing the GIS licensing. Well, it's actually a maintenance fee in credits. Does that help?
Okay, so it's just something new this year.
It's new, yeah.
I always get nervous when I see these maintenance agreements, because they're really well, and just mean 20%.
No, we signed a contract and it's $1,500 and if it increases, it's because we're adding to the program and we're not ready to do that yet. It is something that maybe we'll do in the future, and it's just to get more features for the computer program. So we can do more.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about computer software and hardware equipment, adding $2,000 is a motion on the table for questions or comments. Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? The motion passes 8-5. All right.
The motion did pass with 9, actually, it did pass. I mean, it got a majority. 9 votes necessary. That wasn't 9 votes.
We got less than 9 votes, but
When it gets to the commissioners, it's not binding, right? It's a recommendation that would pass here.
so we'll consider it in the overall budget here. What do we vote on that? Mr. Reader's thoughts?
But I would put it, at some point, we're going to take a vote on the overall budget.
That's where I'm.
And so if that gets 9 votes, then we're okay.
All right. Any further repeats?
That's it.
That's it? Okay, great. So,
Thank you.
at first I can tell, and that this one, that we're up to, total budget now, of $204,600 a month. All right, concerning that. I will consider a motion on the whole budget. Who was that? Sorry, Mr. Hall?
Second.
And a second from Mr. Rennie. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Motion passes by 10-2.
Thank you.
Wait, I
13
missed,
members.
I missed someone, I'm so sorry. Was someone abstaining, or did I just miss Mr. Lund? That seems most likely. It was 11-2. I wrote that. You can't really see me from a stand right now, I'm so sorry. All right, let's start with revenue while we still have you, which is going to be 9025 is the budget line for the revenues.
And I make a motion that we increase that revenue line item to 135,833, to increase it 50% to Mr. Hodgson's one.
Second. Motion by Mr. Ford, seconded by Mr. Hill, to increase 995 to 135,833. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's 823.
833.
Okay, thank you.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Motion passes by 11-2. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We will now move to 1075 Sugar.
It's my personal fault.
My experience with the commissioners was a little different. I know 2 of you were there. Basically, I got 4 budgets you'll be going over tonight. I'll give you a synopsis right now, all of them, so that way it might speed things up. The commissioners went through each budget. They did discuss some cuts in each budget, and then after discussion came to agreement on what they wanted to do. Pretty much whether it was patrol, civil dispatch, or the jail. The first budget we have, well, keep in mind that we have 100 employees, so cuts are hard to come by when you're talking that. The jail itself has 57 positions, including civilian staff, cooks, for instance, we have 3, and our medical contract went up a little bit. So those things have effect, but overall, the patrol budget, which you're doing first, we eliminated, the commissioners pretty much set a goal early spring. They wanted budgets at 0. Again, when you factor employees and benefits, it's difficult to do. So we took out things we wanted to do, but also COVID related was probably his best interest as well for a year, like a K-9 unit. So, those costs all went down. We did have to increase our training budget, overtime budget, sorry. And the price of cars has gone up, as well as availability, and as two of you witnessed, our fleet is somewhat depleted. So it wouldn't be in anybody's best interest, long-term or short-term, to eliminate cars from the budget. And we're still currently funding payments for the cars in the budget, so one commissioner brought up the idea of cutting out a car. And in fact, we want to cut out a payment, which would be $12,000 approximately. When you look at where our fleet is right now, it would be more damaging long-term. But other than that, I don't know what you guys have been doing, because I haven't been coming this year. So I don't know if you want to question certain lines in each budget, or how you want to handle it.
That's how we've been handling most of them, except for Ms. Molina, so they open up the floor to folks. I do actually have a question about line 4025, the drug testing, set at 600. It looks like it hasn't really been used at that level in the past, but I don't know if things will change this year.
It's one of those items that we get, we seize drugs, the district attorney's office will sometimes require us to have them tested.
Okay.
So it's one of those things that we can use the whole thing or we can use very little.
Okay, thank you. Other questions on the sheriff's budget for patrol? Mr. Morgan?
The only one I don't remember is talking about that night is the cleaning, cleaning and disinfecting. Additional 2,700 this year.
It's the car washes. We haven't been budgeting enough.
Is that inside too? Or this is?
So it's currently right now we have budgeted 2 car washes a week in and out, and there's some money like this year we had to have some of the cars, those companies come in and disinfect because somebody got arrested with bag butt.
Yeah, that's why I was asking, just listening nots, the fact that there are costs associated with cars running around.
And then we've gone through, like when we repurpose cars sometimes for different issues. When we trade them in now, we're ripping off the stickers. There's cost that's gone down on, but in repurposing the cars, sometimes we have to pay to get the adhesive removed because it still will show up when the car gets tested. So it's all things like that, but pretty much it's the contract price of the car wash.
Further questions, Mr. Pettis?
Yeah, evening there. How are you?
Well, seeing as though you're lively, I'm probably not as good as everyone else. Go ahead, Andy, what do you want?
I just have a quick question.
Sure.
Salaries and wages, did we add anybody?
You add
Did
any
we
money?
add anybody to that, or is this just?
So you were saying salaries and wages?
Most of the 2019 expended 1.2 million, and they were over $20,000 increase. So that's substantial to me, that's more than a 10% increase.
We have a new contract this year where stipends, particularly education stipends, were increased throughout the contract as well as supervisory stipends. And it also incorporates a percentage of 2 federal, we got a federal grant to have 2 patrol positions. So percentage of salary that we needed to apply for our share is also in there.
Yeah, I want to talk about that briefly too, because, I mean, I know it sounds good, to get a federal grant. How long was that grant last?
The obligation is 4 years.
Federal pay us for 4 years.
No, the feds will pay us. We have to spend their money by 2023.
So we have 2 years?
3 years.
3 years that they'll pay for 7.
3 years, and then we have to hold on to the position for the 4th year.
And then we'll no more likely to keep these people on. So we really won't do anything with this kind of.
We're adding staff at a time of need, and it's supplemented by the federal government. We were kind of put on short notice with some of the changes with our agreement with the state. We applied for this grant, Asia Cornelio went through the effort with Chief Deputy Guy to apply for the grant to provide some sort of relief and seeing how things were doing without, knowing how the change in service would affect our ability. And we were fortunate to get at least that to allow us not to absorb 100% of it now. Our hope is tapering down percentages and absorbing the budget so it's not such a big hit to go from 75 to 25. When we evaluate the staffing, sometimes retirements of long-term employees and bringing in lower costs help absorb some of those costs, but that's kind of the way we look at making up for it. So, you might look at it differently. I understand what you're saying from the tax perspective. I'm looking at it from not only the service to the communities, but to the guys out on the road for their safety.
My feeling is always been, is it's an absolute necessity, you have to replace people with lost, then it's good to get a discount. If we're adding people to it because somebody's waiting a nice character from us, hey, we'll give you a discount.
So you're not familiar with what the changes with the state? We used to have a long-term agreement with the state police for call sharing for the county with live map. Due to their shortages and their obligations, which we get full use of whenever we need, tag team or anything, they're always right there. But with the amount of staff they're designating to their specialty units as well as some of the trafficking issues on 295, they really needed to look at how they were staffed with the troop that serves our area. Understanding where their priorities were and the call sharing agreement going away without knowing the effect on that. We do now know the effect on it. Our call volume was it 1,200 to 200? Or was it 2,000 to 200? So the first month we got 2,000 calls. The state police got 200 calls in comparison. And 20% of their 200 calls were assisting us. If that gives you a breakdown of how the workload is shifted. So understanding the budget year we're coming into, along with the call sharing going away, it wasn't a carrot. We actually applied out of need. We were awarded a federal grant, so we're saving the taxpayers money. And if you talk to staff who actually wanted to send a letter through the union to the budget committee and the commissioners about their concerns, we've talked to them and tried to explain the dynamics of it all. But we also, it's showing that they're traveling more area to get to calls frequently. It's just the way it's going to be.
It's not an excuse to add people just because we get a grant. That's fine.
Oh, that definitely wasn't what was happening.
Can you jump to Mr. Foley, because it's on the same
Yes,
topic?
totally.
It is, okay, great.
First of all, I'd like to thank you, Sheriff Sampson, for your service. And I'd like to remind people that sometimes you can't just look at dollars and cents. I mean, I hope the sheriff can add to this, but from my layman's perspective, I used to work on the turnpike. I used to talk to the state police, and this was a couple decades ago. From what I understood, and you can correct me, it might have changed since then, but the major cities had police forces and the smaller towns had none. So the sheriffs and the state police would split and cover those other towns. And, great state police officers like Gil Landry lost his life, responding to a call in this county, as well as, David Payne and Jerome Rancourt even. They're risking their lives out there, and this is a safety issue. This helps our officers stay safe, and it helps our citizens stay safe. So at any point in time, when we can give them more resources to take better care of us and themselves, I think we should do it.
What we learned from the state police dealing with it is we actually have a good relationship. It wasn't a contentious thing. We met with them a lot. We're still going to meet with them frequently to iron out kinks as best as we can. It's not like they've left the area. The agreement's gone, so whoever gets the calls gets the calls. And when we do call them, they do help out. But they have minimal staffing for a larger area. And everybody, with the exception of currently one trooper, is assigned a specialty. So what that means is when the 18-week academy is going on and they have a firearms instructor there, they lose that guy out of their rotation. When there's a homicide and they have a detective, he's gone. When the detective's called out, gone. So it's getting harder for them to honor the agreement. The former lieutenant, who we also have a great relationship with, he retired, he met with us and basically explained the agreement says we'll respond to our calls. It doesn't necessarily mean we'll be in our area, which caused problems for us because people would get frustrated with that. After working with them more and seeing what they were doing, it was the timing that was horrible. our budgets are in place in February, we're getting these notices. They worked with us, they honored the agreement until June, and that was the most we could get out of, the agreement, and, the grant did enable us to have the staffing available, so our 2 guys out there on the road were covering the whole county, so.
I don't know if that you can go on my arm, you pass that on to all of your officers.
My concern is not so much what you're talking about, see, but Lewiston Armory pays half, Poland pays for their own units, full living costs. Other towns are considered, they're paying a great deal of money to have below protection. So my concern is when your budget continues to grow that much, Lewiston Armory can continue to pay half of the increase, so that other towns can save a lot of money. And they get extra safety needed, they should have it. But then my perspective, again, Lewiston Armory pays half that bill. We don't need the resources.
Right, we have suggested that legislation be put in place where the municipality or a town has a population of, how many people live in Turner?
6,000.
Over 5,000, that maybe they're look at contracting police services or starting their own. It's never been successful, but it's nothing we can't go requiring. As a matter of fact, when I go to a lot of the town meetings, some towns are don't bring it up, we don't spend the money. And I understand that. So I understand what you're saying.
You're offering more control to somebody who says, well, I can't afford it, so I don't want it, but now we're going to offer more because.
But, we have a responsibility to provide the service, and actually, through this, there was the copies of the law of what legally the state police is responsible for and what we're responsible for. And there is a difference, although we all wear, uniforms. But when you're having 2 guys working, and, Durham brought it up, actually. So if a guy's in Turner at a domestic call, you need a number of bodies to handle certain things. So as much as I understand what you're saying, I also have a responsibility to the employees to provide a safe work environment for them. And I believe that was the angle that they may have been looking at when they considered approaching the commissioners about it, this year. So I hope you can understand.
No, I understand. Okay, I don't like it necessarily. I understand. But before I was looking for someone else, I had one other question for the audience, and that was on your service contracts, which again, a lot of this is computer-based, and my position on computer contracts. But I noticed the charges, and we didn't notice this before, the LA 911 network maintenance for IMC contract, $6,000. I've seen that in more than one budget line.
Well, they hit us as much as they can with it.
Because we do that every year, visit years and years. What is that?
We share an IMC network with them, they house it, they have the staff and the professional services.
What is the IMC?
What's that?
What is the IMC?
It's our electronic records management system. It's not even IMC anymore, but the mobile terminals and how we keep everything through a database.
Records management.
Records management system.
Records management.
So they house it, they take care of everything to do with it, and we pay for it.
Mr. Clark?
Quick question. I noticed the increase for Poland. How many hours did the increase for patrolling?
Well, we're not doing anything different with Poland, other than now they did contract for an SRO. So that's the added cost there. They look to adding 24-hour coverage in Poland this year, but because of COVID and states of emergency, they couldn't have their town meeting. And then it got kicked back, and we refigured the rate for 6 months, but it got confusing with factoring overtime. And so they said, we'll just put off a year. So that's not increasing at all, other than all the weekend shifts are now time and a half, because reserves are probably shorter in the future. So they've absorbed every year 8 hours more of overtime rather than 8 hours of a brief and something.
So I'm assuming you looked at their call volume for the year. Which town has the highest increase in calls that you're spending most of your resources?
Well, I can't say it's a resource, an increase. I can say the highest call volume town. Turner.
And I think we're continuing seeing that. I mean, Turner's had some great growth. I think that's great. I think it's important to see that. If you look at Route 4, you see a lot more businesses.
Well, I think they've had growth in every angle, in a three-legged stool.
And they've also had residential growth. And so, I think it's important to have those conversations. I think we mentioned this last year. I'd say it again this year, that we need to have that conversation I'm not sure whether or not we can do any more legislation, but at least start having that conversation. So then to start looking at the impact that that's having overall in the county.
Well, and because it becomes political, I've tried through the Sheriff's Association, and some of them don't want anything to do with it because it's not about, sometimes it's not about making the right decisions, it's about politics and how it reflects. I don't have a problem coming here or going there and saying what I believe we need, based on my experience, what we're seeing, you know, politics aside. It's just not how you do business. Some aren't that way. I believe Larry has talked to the town administrator over there about, are you seeing this? The last time the issue went before the legislature, I believe it might have been Greater New Gloucester and actually a representative from Turner that might have drummed up support, so it got defeated. And as a result, you know, when Andy's upside down, this is what we're seeing.
Thanks.
Use the example associated with homes. What's the inflationary factor to cover insurance and wage increases?
They pay for it all.
So the 3% that's actually there is already added to next.
What we do is we say, you know, Alan Ward makes $5 an hour, 42 hours a week, 12 holidays a year, 2 weeks vacation, family plan, dental plan, this uniform allowance.
There's a maintenance for the vehicle.
Everything.
Vehicle insurance, everything.
The only thing that we were gonna change to the contract, but we left it alone because they were holding off on the contract, is they buy their capital and give it, so it's actually their car, they sign to us. They pay for the radios in the cars, they pay for the mobile terminals, so they pay for everything. We're looking at changing that because they want out of that kind of plan, but that would ride on if they were 24-hour coverage as well. But everything associated to the, you know, and winners and losers. So if you're there 20 years and you leave, and we hire a guy with 1 year, we keep the difference. In the same respect, if a guy is there for 2 years and he leaves and we've contracted them for that, and we hire a guy with 10 years for the rest of the year, we eat the bill.
Right.
So it's not all peaches and greens, but for the most part, it works.
So when cost settles at $34,000 increase covers the cost we're talking about there, plus the additional DSRO we added this year.
The SRO is a separate contract.
Separate.
Yeah.
Yeah, the actually RSU, whatever.
Oh, that's the RS-60.
The RC-60 is a different contract.
Thank you.
And they handle their capital much like what we want the town to do, so that way, yeah, it's just easier.
I'm good.
What about just checking on this, in COVID times, the mileage deals on lodging and other travel expenses, has that changed at all for you?
Well, the problem is it's changed because no training is available.
Right.
So, but no, it's
It's the same as last year.
the same as last year. I mean, there is conferences that are scheduled every year, like the Sheriff's Association this year was in Bangalore, but obviously that got canceled. So I don't know if you're looking at the request or if you're looking at the expenses, why it wasn't spent, if it wasn't, it's because there was no place to send any money. By and large.
And is that anticipated, going forward next year? or-
No, we're anticipating after the election that will. We're hopeful that we'll have training opportunities, like putting off the K-9. We found an alternate place, we had already bought our K-9. We found an alternate training form, we're not sure if we like that better than what we had before. So we're hoping some of the traditional trainings or how they were done come back, but we still have a guy that needs to finish his basic law enforcement training program. We've got 5 people going to corrections, one coming up, but yet they sent us a thing saying, hey, these days you're gonna have to train them yourself. So even that, you know, your basic level training, fortunately we worked out something with, we're having Nami do our crisis intervention training. I'm the regional person for it, and with the help of, I don't know who was ranked, but Eric Barnett and Auburn PD, we're going to be making use of East Auburn Baptist Church because they can meet all the, you know, the distancing, the exits and all that stuff. But other than that, it's been really, you know, virtual Zoom, it's just not. So hopefully we'll have the opportunity to send people to in-service trainings in advance. Things like
We
that.
are starting to see an increase of what's being offered out there. We just recently sent you to Bangalore for a class, but it's a little bit.
I have this like image in my head of you guys homeschooling folks.
Mm.
For some
I
reason.
think my mom was reading this morning.
Wow.
They were.
Every industry. Any further questions, comments, concerns?
I can offer a comment from the
Sure,
podium.
Mr. Ward.
Excluding labor, which is what the commissioners are doing during their public hearing, this budget is 68,995 increase for 3.5%. The wages on that will increase on the one line alone beats that out, so this is a negative budget for everything else other than labor. So I would make the motion as is.
Second.
The motion by Mr. Ward, seconded by Mr. Dale. Questions or discussion?
Yeah, Sheriff, just real quick, I understand totally about the towns like Turner having their own police department. There are some people that think that it's a necessity, others don't. When you say Turner is your busiest town for calls for service, is there a way that your IMC tracks what's self-initiated? Or like if you get a new guy that you hire, and he goes out and does 20 traffic stops every shift versus somebody who only does 10? Is that going to show calls for service are higher, or is it just self-initiated versus?
That can be broken down, not an issue at all. And ironically, last time, just so you know, because I know you're familiar with the systems and counts, we compared them to Poland. And I understand self-initiated because of, Route 4, we'll say, in the middle of the night is a little bit different than 26 in the middle of the night. But there was more calls for service at the month we looked at in Turner than there was. Again, we didn't separate any of it out, and it was close, but it was a little bit of a spike. But you as a resident selectman there, and it's no, I get it. I get it. But you look at the amount of commercial development, the amount of residential. It's really Turner's very fortunate. They've had a nice mix of things. But with that, it affects everything from sheriff following to your law
The
enforcement.
comment has come to me that why pay for a service that you're already getting for free? And unfortunately for Wilson and Auburn and stuff like that, Turner's a great place for, whether it's state police or the sheriff's department. If you call 911, there's going to be somebody there within a matter of minutes, I believe. Just because logistically everybody congregates in that area if they're not tied up with something else.
Well, you tend to be in an area where, like it or not, where you have a higher opportunity for calls.
Yep.
And, Turner, but we, administratively, we want visibility in every community, because some are southern and some are northern, and we have ways to monitor that, and I think we've been successfully compliant, but Turner does by nature because the calls that they're more frequently there.
Anything further? Seeing none, all those in favor, as is?
Thanks.
It's unanimous. Oh, I'm so sorry, all those opposed? Passes 12-1. All right, sorry about that. Thank you.
Civil,
Do we want to talk to, are there revenues associated before we talk to civil? Revenues. All right, we're trying to keep everything on the
9370, RS-316, we just talked about it. I will make the motion as is, it's tracking, it's budgeted for 99,753 next year, 7108, which would be the additional cost of cash flow for the RSU for the coming year.
Is that second, sorry? Is that you, Mr. Hill?
Which line are those?
We're on 9370, as is.
Okay.
Any discussion? All those in favor? That one is truly unanimous. And
9340, the Poland contract, again, I would make the motion as is, the budget for the coming years, $268,226, which is a $34,311 increase for the costs that they just identified that are covered underneath that contract.
Motion?
Yes.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Wood, seconded by Mr. Rennie, as is. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous.
security services, I guess I would ask the question of the sheriff. Obviously, this year was not stellar work. Where do you see us in the coming year? Do we hope to achieve the $20,000 budget?
It's more of what schools contract us a lot, but it's also the details that come like highway safety, or the barnyard. I'm not familiar with that. Sometimes they would hire us. Security details, it's money in, money out.
Yeah.
So, we participate in OUI, speed patrols, things like that. I would anticipate it would go down. It's probably a good area to put in, anticipating some revenue.
Highway safety. It's all for construction details. We did some, we got hired this summer for Brookfield up at Cherry Pond and Green for the problems that they were having. Bates College sometimes hires us for their row house special events. So it's those we budgeted. I think they actually went down about 15 this year, but whenever we budget, we match it with revenue. So if we only spent 6,000, it'll be 6,000.
I guess I have to make a motion as it is for $20,000 for coming year.
Motion by Mr. Moore, seconded by Mr. Money, on line item or revenue item 9275. Any questions or discussion? Mr. Moore.
Just ask a question, what were the problems you were having at Cherry Pond? Pretty close to the house.
We had people coming up, loitering, participating in activities that weren't appropriate for the area.
Well, is that shut down now, or do they not allow?
They don't allow, it's gotta be shut down.
It's still open right now. The neighbors were complaining.
Well, you can tell.
Sorry. The Brookfield it looks like it's getting ready to be turned over, or the plan is to turn it over to the Inland Fisheries and Wildlife Department and the Warden Service of Patrol. It's been, sadly enough, it was a great idea it was part of the licensing procedures for Brookfield. They had to go through to get the licenses for the dams. And Town Green asked us, hey, let's put something in for Town Green. And sadly enough, it has become an area where people congregate and perform clandestine activities, so to speak.
Oh, okay.
And
I just noticed that it was dirty, it was really.
It's quite clean now.
And then the town, I'm assuming it was the town paved the road, so what happens when you have residents that live on a narrow road, there's little traffic, any car drives by, it seems like 50 miles an hour.
25 miles an hour.
So we were dealing with the residents, and residents would go confront people, go pick up your trash, or, hey, you don't live here, and it would get confrontational. So when we talked to them, they had said, is it Brookfield?
Yeah.
Brookfield was very good to work with. So we said, well, next time you talk to them, tell them they can contract for us for extra security details, and maybe we'll get out through visibility, and you won't start having a problem. And it actually worked very quickly.
So it's more, it's like parking,
It's a
drug dealers or something going on up there?
The parking, 7 o'clock in the morning, doesn't be as.
Oh, geez, so partying.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just noticed I went up there a few times and people were bringing their dogs, which is a great place for their dogs. They weren't picking up after them.
They weren't picking up their kids or themselves or anybody else.
It's too bad that it's too bad out of
We're going to have somebody going there, I believe, once a day, to actually clean the area up. 5 days a week.
Wow. Well, thank you guys for the context then. I did not know that.
Further discussion on 9375 as is. Seeing none, all those in favor? I can't see Mark. There you are. Oh, and it's unanimous, sorry. All right.
Last line is insurance reports.
Thank you.
3,500. Last year looked like it tracked high, the previous year low. I make the motion as is. The question I would ask is that a fee that goes to the commissioners? How's the fee that's set for that?
That's the action reports. It's kind of set standard through the state for $10 for an action report.
Okay, state, I didn't know if it was something that fell to the county level.
I mean, we get the money back with the fee.
But the state sets the fee.
Yeah, I mean, we could charge more, but then they just go to the state and we won't get anything, so.
Gotcha. Okay.
I have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Hill, and Mr. Kite?
Just have a question, maybe there's not related answer to this, it relates to all revenues. These 2019, 2020, and 2021, are those actual revenues for 2019? So, we have, like in this case, $3,500. Or if we're going to be talking about civil process, we have a number there. That we received the civil for 220,000, what's 2020, was 240 in 2019. So I guess I'm asking, that 2019, is that an actual number received in revenues?
Are you talking about civil, or are you talking something else?
Well, we're not talking about the $3,500 in the fund already on insurance people. We get money, that's the revenue stream, $3,500.
Yeah.
The 2019 number, that says 3,500, we got 3,500 for 2020, and 3,500 for 2021.
No, those are budgeted.
So the budget, there you go.
With 2019 being 4138, 2018 being 3887.
So,
All right, yours on 9,300 as is, all, any more discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. All right, we will move on to the civil process. And 76.
Make a motion to send it there,
I have a motion and a second to accept as is at $248,609. Common Insurance.
That's fine. Ask for my clarification, what is this you're talking about?
So in process, we have, it's a four-person division. It's serving the post paperwork, evictions, foreclosures,
It's not just limited to need this.
and there's, anything civilly that needs to be served by the deputy, that's what it is. The rates are, well, some of the rates are set by the state. The state gives themselves a discount on rates that the paper they have us serve. So, that's pretty much what it is.
Do you have any legal jurisdiction to accept or not accept, civil process requests?
No, I mean, the law basically says that, ironically, that's one thing we will do.
Okay.
Sheriff's or designee. It's very specific, I can't give it to you right now. It's actually, it's interesting that that's actually spelled right out. So we don't have the right of refusing service. It's pretty much here's the fee, pay the service, whether it's through attorney's offices or, walk-in traffic for, I hate saying routine matters, but in effect, it's generally people in that situations, that are financially or relationship. Sorry.
That's an excellent question. So what you're telling me is that if somebody just sues somebody without any, justification whatsoever, they pay their fee, you've got to serve papers.
Yeah. I don't know if that's a good example, but pretty much if somebody pays to serve paper, it's been issued through the court, we serve, there's a lot of frivolous lawsuits, in my opinion, just time, but I guess that would be easy to do. We don't have the choice to decide what we're serving, and
What is the fee, like $35 or something?
I don't know.
It's roughly around $30.
That's what I thought.
There's all kinds of little, there's my,
It wouldn't be expensive. Okay, thanks, sir.
You gotta want to go there.
I don't know, I'm not going to see you with a good year on the way.
So that's you get set by the state or somebody else.
Some are set by the state. And at the same time, the legislature was still manual, and they were looking at doing things legislatively. So we said, let's purchase almost a whole line, and actually, Commissioner Commissioner Christopher was very, interested in that, and she was here last time we reviewed the rates. But COVID affected legislature off, obviously, the manual came through. So we don't know what's changed the state, which would have put on us. So kind of, we were looking at what we thought we should have a model, because there are some private businesses that do it as well. But kind of, let's get what we get together, let's see what the state says we can do to kind of, you don't want to price yourself, like I say, and you gotta follow what the state says is an acceptable rate to charge. And like I said, COVID happened, we put it all on hold, we're always going to be on that from the legislature. So in the future, there's going to be room to make adjustments. We'll probably recommend some smaller adjustments now, but it's hard to recreate the wheel every time because we have a lot of regular customers, whether they're landlords or attorneys' offices. So if we start making changes to rate, in November, and March comes around, we change these rates. It's easier just to kind of do a one full swoop change each other.
I mean, I'm glad that you budgeted for the post this year, I appreciate that. But I know that revenues just seem to not miss the mark that we forecasted a couple of years. So maybe it is time for revenue.
Yeah, we did balance. And unfortunately, this is, it's going to be interesting. This year, we're not going to be our revenue. Thankfully, the teacher's on our, she might cover the economic. And but as a result of things you're seeing, things we're dealing with on law enforcement, we believe there'll be a lot of civil service next year. But we've lost all our revenue this year because everything shut down, you can't get court dates. The reality is next year we'll rebound and probably exceed
When we go to the law companies, rebound about the increased laws.
Mr. Manager, response?
I want to ask a follow-up question in regards to the services you're in. You said it was a four-person division, and, if overnight it became a two-person division, would you fail to meet statutory requirements, or would you just take longer than necessary?
Well, you have to have somebody sitting here to collect the papers, you have to have somebody to send out the billing, somebody to distribute the papers, somebody to make sure the whole papers are, somebody to oversee it. So we have that individual here. We have 3 servers, and when I came into office, it was 2.5 servers. It became a problem because you have employees that have vacation time, sick time, military commitments. So we talked about if you miss dates, you're going to start the process over again, and then people aren't happy. So we took a part-timer, a full-timer, and it seemed to have worked for a year and a half that we had it available. Obviously, this year it's really a whole different issue. So what you're doing is the same thing. Our service would be for, it is part of our revenue, but I'm not saying you're getting money off of it. And I think we miss deadlines to court dates because, one guy serving the county and one guy here taking the papers, it just would be an effective way to operate. And there's been different models here in my experience. I mean, it used to be they had per diem employees serving everywhere. But the county looked at different models, changed. I inherited that, and I just tried to, rather than recreate the wheel, tweak what was there to have a better service for the customers.
Follow-up question to that. If you have trouble, like reaching people, how many times, let's say for a civil case, for, one neighbor suing another neighbor, how many times do you go out, or is it?
It depends. I'm not by any means a civil expert, but I believe they visit like 3 times, and then they have to submit affidavits back to the court saying what it is to change the rules of service or post a home. And it depends on what kind of paper they're trying to serve. I mean, you have everything from divorces to evictions to foreclosures to, creditors trying to get in touch with people to those rent furniture places, hunting people down. So I can't tell you all the intricacies of it. I just keep a copy of the manual. I had a lot of questions during the COVID outbreak from landlords. So that was easy, so we had an executive order that pretty much, trumped everything, spelled it right out. Typically, I rely on me personally employed to manage it all. And there's resources in Augusta that I've reached out to as a checks and balances.
Thank you.
We are considering the whole budget as is. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous. And there are associated revenues here, I should say.
9275. Given the discussion we just had associated with this, I make a motion to pass as is at the $220,000 for next year's budget.
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Ford, seconded by Mr. Rennie. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous. That's it for civil. We will move on to 1077. Sheriff's Department debt benefit.
Motion to approve it,
Second.
And a motion and a second, as is. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous? I'm actually going to advocate that we take a quick 5-minute break since we are requiring everyone to wear a mask. So if people want to leave and take it off for a couple minutes, or use the facilities. So we're good with that. Take no objections, we'll take 5 minutes and be back at 7:30.
I was telling Billy, what's weird is I think I have a little bit of a hair problem over the years, so I said, but with the mask thing, it really proves to me how much I rely on you, because I find myself looking at your mouth, and I think you develop a skill without knowing it.
I know there's issues over here, all the years.
What's going on? Hey, busy?
On the side here.
Sometimes we tired, very busy.
On the list, or what's keeping you?
As soon as I got retired, we bought another storage facility, so I got 2 of them.
See, you're not retired, you said you were.
That's what I did, and then we bought a camp, I didn't be done it, we built. So this year, we finished the camp, I got touched, I got water. And all the beach shit, by the water, so I wanted to rid of it, I had to rebuild it.
You get rid of it, you never get it back.
That's what I did today, so I took care of the first, replaced wood, and Frank,
The crank, right?
He was at her house.
So that's good.
And my grandparents' house.
that's what they
He witnessed.
I did take a couple more
Around the wood
times.
stove. Back in the day, they had the wood stove and stuff. That's the road. Just to start the yeah, like 11 kids.
Nice to have that kind of.
Grab that.
Yeah, we can get away from the fire. Now it's the button.
You were able to there, see. Yeah. Nobody in my family told me that story. Whatever.
Came to us at like how?
You didn't know each other. already started talking.
Right around zero.
Yeah, I hope, I know when we left, we were just talking about recommendation. Make a recommendation. I would not know that story. If I hadn't been with you, you know, I was not on the wrong thing, and at least we made a recommendation. Oh, yeah. That's how I know. I knew I was in there, I just didn't know how much. But I always assumed I was cataract. Come to find out. Because my family was it's like my others, ancestors were like I could trace back to the Revolutionary War. Came out. My ancestor, if he was my yeah, he lost his leg in the Revolutionary War, the Civil War. I guess he was probably he was a captain. It was the same. It was like slavery up in Canada. We're going to the French, people back and forth. The British nationalists won. People that were one king of the states and colonies. And they took all the land from all the French people, Indians. And they sent them down to Louisiana, they sent them to the south of the state, they sent them to Boston, and one of them got to go to Boston, they want chickens for the rest of the world. That's why we have my parties. It just falls on deaf ears. It's insulting to a lot of people. You know, their generation is the first ones that had running water. They were the first ones that got out living in a shack on the railroad track.
We're gonna call the meeting back to order. No one gave me a gavel, so that's a suffice. We'll wait for Dave to come up. Got it, great. So we're moving on to 1078 communications.
If I can start, those that Phil had a question about IT costs that should be in communications. Actually, there isn't. IT does no more for communications than it does for any other department. Actually, because we have two very savvy employees there, Marty being one of them. They take care of a lot of the updates and so on that has to be for communications.
Point of clarification, I'm not the other one.
And so IT simply deals with normal occurrences, maintenance that they would do for any other department.
So you said no more than they would do for any other department. When we were talking about the polling contract, we were talking about breaking down all costs. Are we breaking down some of those costs? And if we're not, I think we really need to start doing task analysis because we are billing out to other communities for some of this work. And we should be capturing all the costs, not just the costs that are easy to assign. But I do think we need to start looking at task analysis and determine how much actual administrative time, resources that are going into these other departments. Because when we take a look at communications, we'll get into that. You're seeing a 16% increase since 2019. I think the revenues have only increased 15%. So we've yet to really start pushing, as we have talked about over the years, more cost to those communities for paying for communications. So that's a considerable increase, and I understand I get the cost for communications, but I think that we need to make sure that we're getting more of that all through costs. Sheriff talked about spending time on civil process, the time of his hours that he spent not just on jail, not just on patrol, but also within communications and personnel matters, whatever it may be, purchasing capital improvements. So as we continue to move, it takes a lot of work to get it done, but once that task analysis is done, then it's just adjusting it every year. I think we're just continue looking at that.
Just, if you don't mind, so everybody understands, because I don't know how much detail, the dispatch again, I don't know, is included in the sheriff's office operation, it's under my administration, but the rates are set by the commissioners. The service direction contracted through them. It's kind of odd, when I first took over, we were servicing nobody with one less staff member, I believe. And in that time, understanding there was an opportunity for some revenue, we went out and bought towns like Greenback and Turner and Wales, which we never had, Status, EV, Satisfier. So we did as much as we could to say, hey, come back to us for service, because there was revenue tied to it. Our current staffing levels could support the call volume from what we're seeing. Our idea was, in dealing with Bruce on call, they do themselves in Poland. If we could capture everybody else, so maximize our opportunity for revenue and provide a service under the sheriff's office in Chicago County to everybody else. So we were successful in doing that. We made recommendations at the same time for rates, because you're offering contracts for ESAP, police dispatch, fire dispatch, all the towns we did it to. Commissioners followed that, and at this point, I'm where I am managing it, policies, reviewing capital plans, and working at, and the commissioners set those rates you talk about. So when I was kind of sitting here looking this way, that's not my thing, and I do understand what you're saying, but I think it's important for you to know where everything lies as far as what's under who's authority. At the same time, some of these places we are really talking about the revenue with, and that's part of the cost analysis of what we're trying to break down. I get that, I'm not opposed to doing it. Some of the towns we dispatch for have 3-year contracts that have fixed costs or maybe minimal increases, and we charge them all the same. Whatever one town's paying for a PSAP and one service, they're all paying. Whatever we charge for police dispatching, they're all paying. So it's not like we're working a different deal for Sabatis than we did for Livermore Falls. They're fairly consistent. But it also limits when you have an opportunity to adjust those rates. Just so you know, because some of them you seem like you're here forever, and some of them you might be here forever. So it's good to get the information.
Just one quick follow-up. Just as this wants to look at the patrol,
The police is most expensive.
right. Now, is that based on per capita?
If they're all per capita, yes. The fees for service were before my time, and it was somebody's idea somewhere, but they're all based on per capita. So 10,000 people live in Lisbon, they pay us for their PSAP service, 911. It's, I'll say, $250 per capita. The police dispatching services in return is like $650. And I'm just guessing, I don't really know what the actual figure is. But there is that much of it within the fire service is a little cheaper. I always recommend everybody pays the PSAP, so that's the issue actually increase. So I also understand all volume-wise police services, and those make sense to try to go a little bit more. Was that? We don't know, here's the rate, so we charge that to the dispatcher, and they pay an extra for the dispatcher. But they understand, we can't break it out service. Follow what I'm saying?
I'm going to get exactly what Mr. Crowell is actually saying, especially if we were to accept the IT budget, because actually when you raise 20% this year, you get it on both sides. So to say that it's similar to other divisions still doesn't give us a division.
All right, so we'll start our communications exclusively now. If you want to go,
There's nothing to, again, we try as every division, try as, what I did with the commissions, I saw the differences, like I did with you in patrol, was cars cost more, but we might build the dog, we had to increase the overtime, and communications, it's, for lack of a better term, status quo. The district made $3,200 in reductions in our proposed budget, which we've decided on the lines to do. So that's our plan, and the increase you'll see in salaries here is they have a new contract and dispatchers won't be anywhere close to local market. So the commissioners through the negotiations looked at that and provided an hourly stipend to our dispatch division. So it kept them on corrections pay scale, but added $1 for dispatchers to put them in that market of $911 or even Elizabeth, Elizabeth dispatchers were leading a higher pay level. It puts us at an average. That's, so, yeah. And then you also have people pay their staffs because of the high usage service. So we look at capital, I think we're paying bills for what we're paying off.
Just a couple of questions. I noticed the phone bill, we have stipend for Sullivan at $50 a month. Is that a super call?
Is that first month?
A super call?
No, it's, what it is,
But it's typically all we're paying $50 today, we're paying $50 for a super call.
yeah, I don't understand. Anyway, what we're doing is several years ago with the commissioners, and we kind of wanted out of the phone business. The commissioners set a rate to pay people stipends so we get out of the phone business. Unfortunately, the union didn't like that, so we were successful with administrative positions, but we weren't with labor positions. So the $50 stipend was a rate set by the commissioners.
If it's a standard phone, it would be cheaper for us to have our own talent and go to the line charge.
The problem you have with it is replacing phones. Some people have that, some don't. The insurance on the phone is something different. And then you have people that are carrying 2 phones. The easy management tool was the $50 stipend. Now, when we set the rate, and I know what you're saying today, everything's changed. I mean, we've got a camera system in the jail, $150,000 cheaper than we got 4 or 5 years earlier. But the phones at the time, the plans at the time when we were doing this was like $65 a month for a phone with a limited calling you data plan. Now it's probably cheaper, but the rate is set at $50, so it's still at $50.
So no one would give a person who's required to get their own phone separate. If it's a county phone only, then they still be carrying 2 phones. But if it's their own personal phone.
It is their own personal. And the county's not responsible for it. The employees that get the stipends have to submit a bill to prove that they have a phone, I guess. And then it's distributed third week of the month through the treasurer's office after commission meeting to authorize the payment.
Okay, my other question was, last year we did upgrade our radio systems and we're making payments on new radios. And I guess I asked at that time, I know there's a vendor-sponsored payment plan, if I remember right. But is it the vendor?
No, you're remembering wrong. The only time we've used a vendor payment plan, and we won't do it again because it isn't worth the aggravation, was through the camera system in the cars. Other than that, this one was the TV bank or something? Or more stable.
Oh, so at the time we didn't know, we were going to be a vendor, but we actually now negotiate a loan with the PD bank for that $610,000.
No, Gorham. Yeah, the only time we've done a vendor loan was the camera, body cameras, car cameras, the server. We did use them because it was a better deal, but it's just an aggravation process that it would have been easier to spend the $5 more a year to go.
What's the interest rate on this system?
last year when we financed it. It was, in effect, what you, well, now I can't even say what you finance your brand new car for, because that's ridiculously low too. It wasn't out of range of what would be acceptable.
Competitive rate on
Actually, required on that, it was minimal.
It wasn't, they didn't take advantage of a government, but I don't remember.
But $610,000, that was the purchase price.
That was purchase installation, what we financed was everything.
Divided by a certain amount of months, it was $70,000 a year.
Divided by 5 years, wasn't it?
And that didn't include the interest, so where's the interest in that go? I mean, finance is a bank, you get 610, you get finance is a bank.
I mean, we had all this last year. I mean, I get it for you. I mean, I'm not trying to argue, but when we financed last year, because one of the commissioners wanted to know the difference between financing 5 years to 10 years, and he didn't want to pay for it all, but I wanted to get even more. And many commissioners said that. So, we did get all that information, we moved forward with the project, now we're into it, I don't remember the whole lot.
No, remember, this is line item.
That's what they call it. It's actually purchased, but when they started financing everything here in the 90s, everything was lease purchase. And it's, we lease purchase our cars, but at the end of it, we own things. And then this is the same.
So, okay, 70, no more. That's a lease. 70 includes interest.
Yeah.
It does. Right. So the 610, I guess, really confused on that line item. Because I know when the purchase price is 610, with no interest.
No. If you were to write a check, yeah, but if you have most of the cars, it's very like that.
Right, so we had interest.
Yes, absolutely.
7,000, 610, still interest is hanging.
Yes, it's in, if we went on paying 70,000 for 10 years, my guess would be, this is $70,000 in interest over the term of the loan.
So the bank,
90,000.
the bank gives 70,000 a year times 10.
The bank gives $610,000 for the project, but they wanted to just over a 10-year term, and apparently how it multiplies over the 10 years if we make those payments, so that they'll end up with 90,000 in interest.
Okay. I would look at the interest rate.
No, I don't think so.
The deal sound good, and I'm handing it to you, but then,
Yeah.
quick and easy, but then you can,
I need to be sure, I remember I looked at this at Wazoo last year, and it was very frustrating. But we did get it all together, obviously we were saving a lot of money doing it for 5 years. The interest rate wasn't that much different, like, it went 1.5 or 1.25 to shorten it. But the cost to pay for it, per year just went through the roof. And we figured this out, all equipment will last more than 10 years, so that there was no risk in my next 10 years.
all right, the other last question, I just want to bring something to point to Susan Control question about the IT. I noticed there's no electricity line on the budget, and it's part of the maintenance facility, electricity, I'm sure. And if we're having a service we're providing, we usually have assuming we're getting a percentage of cost to come up with that rate per person. We should know our whole cost, and I'm assuming that the new electricity ones, which is running software, that will affect whether our next time we decide to set a rate will include the IT and electricity. If right now it's in the facility, so if you find out with the kind of taxes, in order to take it to the service model, you can deal with it, not paying for the electricity and not paying for the IT.
Well, you really have to do a jail budget if they have all those things in there.
Well, that's what I mean, because we don't have revenue stream, the state that they pay these on your expenses.
I don't think that's the reason why.
It's supposed to pay these on your expenses.
No, I understand what you're saying, I mean, maybe that's something that probably we can look at. I get what you're saying about true costs in some regard, I mean, if the jail reflects that, the rest of them don't, I think that's just, the county has everything, and they're not necessarily needy, but I understand what you're saying. But at the same time, we've always been defended by the jail, getting singled out, with all these, you're going to pay 40 cents electric, you're going to pay so much to your IT bill. if you're gonna do it to jail, and you're gonna do it to communications, why don't you do it to every department?
Only the one that have revenue stream, they're all.
And all of our industry, showing me what department you did it, that's
That's a good idea.
I'm just saying, we've always been, correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, it's kind of been insulting for years that the jail, you know, has this. So what I'm saying is, we want to figure out the true cost around, you know, the department, where, you know, I just told you Tina's is gonna be able to sell probably revenue license and Silverman, and it all goes to the same place to really figuring out the true cost targeted dispatch. Well, hey, let's go back to figure out the true cost of the patrol division, and the true cost of coordinate, and everything else.
Absolutely.
I'm with you.
All right, as opposed to.
No, you're just trying to figure it out.
Yeah, when you result, it really makes sense.
No, you're for now, you're for all, right? And I think that's fair and equitable for all the departments.
Absolutely. Suppose there any chance that ever happen?
No.
Well, kind of, reason is, no, I'm saying.
The bottom line is, generally, it doesn't matter, when the bill comes out, you pay the bill, when you pay it, in 10 increments or 1 increment, the cost is going to be the same for county. Some things are worth bringing off for particular reasons, and some aren't, but,
I guess the point that I would make is we're not getting your attention because you're going out with dispatch services. You all can just put it on, listen, and communicate. And back to Mr. Tice's question originally on telephones, are we still in the business of providing phones, or we move towards cell phones? There's communications beyond it, and
Administratively, and I think we're in the business of both.
I don't know if we would actually get on the cell phone and move our direction towards sirens, because they're not kind of widely accessible. You don't have to deal with hardware, people only get associated. I understand about patrol union associated with that, but the majority of the personnel aren't probably union contract, you should move towards sirens.
Well, with the recent,
And I'm not making it towards you, because I'm saying that globally, for the county.
No, yeah, when it comes to us, we're actually the big dog in the thing. We actually encouraged the union to do that. There was an employee that thought we were trying to mention FOIA, he thought we were trying to wrap them up. I'm like, actually, everything was confident, fishing expedition, they're protected, he had a lot of influence. Now we have a place to carry 2 phones, or our phone system in the car, and they forward everything to their phone. I think, you know, times have changed. If the commissioners are still interested in doing that, and there may be an opportunity. We don't want to be in the phone business, because it's a nightmare for us, every time we call this, or get something fixed. So I think administrator, we all agree we want to have it. I think it's easy. And I don't look at the other problems.
Do you have a community of that? If you took it out?
No, but it's, you know, like Larry says, you want to fight with this, we just a whole fight for it, don't do that. One at a time. So, you know, you choose your battles at a time.
You put that aside for the union contract services, the majority of the employees are actually not union based or still providing cell phones, you can actually take greater action with that if you are.
Or we can approach them, you know, I don't have any problem.
I'm just bringing it up, it probably should have brought up personally, you know, where there had been, you still providing cell phones. That is more for later moving forward.
You know, it wasn't Larry's fault, it wasn't.
No, I don't disagree.
everything's fine.
Well,
Listen, I can tell you that I had almost the best team. They hired me and gave me my proposed contract. The proposed contract was Dave was going to provide me a phone, and then Dave was going to pay me the stipend and use it. Unfortunately, they caught it before I signed it.
yeah, that's one of the
You would actually be didn't get rid of that.
All right, I have no motion on the table, but a lot of discussion, we're going through. Anyone want to throw anything?
I would make a motion as is, to exclude 14% for wages and budget as a total of 3.8% increase, which is significantly reduced with everything else that's going on.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? That looks unanimous. And we have some revenues.
9345. I'm seeing that the contractors do increase, the motion as is.
Mr. Ward, seconded by Mr. Reddy, as is. Discussion?
I was just making a recommendation, a note, maybe for the commissioner, the administrative posting process on, I don't think those late bill rates were looked at since 2018 when they were adopted. I think it's time for them to be evaluated.
And that's the same recommendation we made last year.
Actually, those rates have been reviewed and changed 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
Twice during my tenure.
Yeah, and there has been some increase the last, I think last year was a 5% increase. I can't tell you what this next year is, but
We certainly haven't seen it since the 2018 increase. Because it did increase higher than what the budgeted usage was. I mean, it's actually increased by 16 since 2019.
I know the last time I made a recommendation was when they were reconstructing, so it was in the old office, and we did a piece out 1 year prior to the next, I think they tend to follow the recommendation. I'm trying to not focus as much on that.
if that's all, we'll take it up, because I think those 3 year was, that they were about, that's what we're trying to do again, so.
Great. Motion is as is, and further discussion? All those in favor? It is unanimous. And we'll go on to activities, the jail, and further business.
Jail is 160 bed group, facility is rated for 160. 450 today or 160 inmates a day. And it's almost fully staffed. We have 3 additional offers out to certified correctional officers from our agencies, and we'll be fully staffed, which is unique for the state of Maine. So we're hoping to accept the jobs for more organizations. During COVID, we managed to get that to come down to the 70s, but as soon as we're back, this is normal. It's 160, 165, sometimes it's 155. So we're staying for a while there. In this budget, we'll be able to offset some of these expenses. We reduced the warranty fees for mechanics at one time we were provided by, I believe it was $75,000 to make the budget work. One biggie that we're looking to purchase this year is some sort of mechanical thing that controls heat, cooling, and air circulation in the facility. We budgeted, I think, $140,000 for that. Other than that, is the only other big jump in this contract was medical to our contract provider for the inmate population. It was, I believe, $60,000, $55,000 increase. So those are the differences you see in there. And then, you know, for aims at that, I think you'll see the breakdown of services that are incorporated in this budget that you're looking for the ones with true cost of the facility. It's broken down, right down to benefits and everything.
The reality reality of the jail budget is a little more complicated than others because of the state funding or lack thereof. And I'll tell you that it was 10 years ago, my first foray into county government. And my first day on the job was a meeting with the Board of Corrections. And I have been confused ever since that day. And I can, in the, how the state funds or doesn't and so on, I can give you the 3-day version or the 8-minute version. Either way, you'll probably be as confused as I am. And essentially what has been happening is that the state sets aside money for jails. It is now a sure thing. The county has to raise so much, the state raises so much, and then some counties like us put in a year-end supplemental. Because, for example, let's say we lose 5 employees, or 5 inmates rather, the cost, the state, what they pay us goes down, but our cost doesn't go down, because we still have to, and then there's other miscellaneous things such as court costs and so on that they get paid. Anyway, there have been some years that the state did not pay us the supplemental funding in years past. There were 2 years ago, the state had budgeted $18 million to go to jails. There was in 2 parts, one of $6 million and one of $12 million. The governor at that time vetoed both parts of money, which would have put us $2 million in the hole. Fortunately, the legislature overrode that and so on. So anyway, to make a long story short, and then the other thing is in the law that was passed in 2015, giving the jails back to the counties after the state had not adequately funded their portion of it. In that was that counties could raise the tax for jails by 3% a year. And then 2 years ago, that was raised to 4% a year. And so, in the conversations that have been had over the years, my colleagues and others, the inference was that if the counties did not increase our portion of tax, then the state funding would be impacted. And so, what we did was increase our tax by 3% a year, every year, until this year. And I looked at this year, and we only did 2%. So last year, the state gave us $1,679,426. This year, the state is going to give us $1,500,000, or has already given us $1,503,396. So therefore, we're $176,000 less. Fortunately, and what has traditionally been happening is the state budget set dollars for supplemental for the 7 or 8 of us counties that need that each year. And we have always budgeted for our supplemental in the budget. And for example, last year ago, July, we got that $354,000 that we was going to be short. That came in the check in July with the rest of the state money. This year, however, that is not the case. We've been told it can only be for expenditures or money that is needed for last year. And we got money last year. So the $366,000 I budgeted, we're going to have to wait and see how that's going to go. We were fortunate in that we did not spend all our money last year, and we have a reserve, so we used $400,000
far as the budget itself, if you look it over, I know years past, you say, hey, what is this software equipment, and say, here's what it is, and then half an hour later, you know, all this software equipment, and then I give you the same explanation. We tried to go through this budget, where actually Jeff has, and put some stuff where it belongs, like we discovered, you know, if you look at the proposals, for instance, it looks like they jump because people that the proposals weren't in the right lines, or I think programs was decreased, maybe there was something there. So if you're looking at numbers, why such a jump? There is such a jump, which is just every year we're noticing a little bit of those screwed up document where we made justices to so accurately reflects the positions and the education budget. But if you have any questions about any of that, again, there's no increase in staff, this was putting some stuff where it belongs. And the IT systems is a couple of things that, you know, one might have said maintenance, and one might have said,
When do you see that having a fit for us? That's like right now, we're back to.
we're trying to get back to straightforward, there was no confusion, so when we buying something to fix one of our boards, it's out of the line that Jeff budgeted for, because there's a little bit of, the wording is so similar, which one of those things, $20,000 of thing. We're trying to fix that, we need some majority of personnel issue.
It makes you contract has those numbers, and my sheet was two lines out of that. Those things, you know, here.
Anyone have a number on this subject?
No, they left. This was
one that usually commissioners budget committee don't go the lines because it's almost the 2% one year, regardless.
I just didn't have any more or anything. Okay. Any further questions?
Just a couple, look at the utility charge. Let's basically don't tell 43.5 and 43.15. And I'm looking at 20 actions. I like our charts compared to what getting back down to 20, but 9,000 actually 100,000. So far, that's a lot of
Budget $1,000 more. We're fiscal year. Services on contract with Volunteers in America, regional services, and it's people that haven't been convicted. But anyway, people that haven't been convicted, they put them on bail on supervised release. So it's almost like probation or non-convicted offenders to get out of jail. Roughly, we have 130 people on retrial. And we've talked about that we're going to manage additional staff or head count, but they feel they've got as much as risk as the staff can. It would only allow us to supervise the people that are out of the facility better. It wouldn't allow us to take on clients.
There was such an issue, getting prisoners filed out, that was first.
That's been solved. That was addressed last year. Well, it's we're doing a video, so we're actually looking at taking the same staff and kind of repurposing them, but probably not for the future, make sure everything's on the same page. Once COVID, whatever normal is gonna be, will definitely not be what we're doing right now. But we are in a position to be able to handle things thanks to what we did last year. So that is all set. Is it $100 million?
Yeah, I see that,
It's that mechanical thing that controls the air, and you might want to talk to your camera guy about it. Is like being held together on a shoestring. I wanted to get it done this fall because we're supposed to be bad winter. And originally, when I was asking for zero budgets, you almost where the idea of well, pieces goes, the county's gonna have anyway, but it's not the responsible person, so we figure that out, budgeting, non-head, I really don't want to deal with losing the heat, or whatever rules, whatever national changes, and everything.
So, board, it's good, much control of the heating system.
That was a service contract.
It's not a contract. It's a whole system. The system is designed to run on Windows 95. So if you have the push, but it's running 88. That's it. So not just place the year, it's all servers on every single unit. It's designed to run a gas system, so we can add something more efficient to motorized system. It's an expensive change out. When maintenance comes to service, they usually bring us 2 watts of extra circuit boards. We'll last and stay mains in this whole system. So some of the park actually brought left here.
We got our money's worth out of it. Ron is 1 block is gonna be empty.
Yeah. We can't do this anymore.
There's no good. They don't want it.
No, I talked about the new system. Is it going to be anything else, all this money?
Oh, sure, it's just on contract now. Contract, address this last asking, short out, regulation of chain, that's supposed to.
This is also on the scope line.
So that maintenance contract, you can say the same one, yeah.
Refresh controls.
Well, we originally, the goal of ours was to bring in the scanner. But given the directives and understanding the financial issues, a lot of communities contacted commissioners lately, looking for reductions. And we looked at the scanning device, where we put it, and how beneficial it would be for instances that may be similar to that. There was a cost of $5,000. So that was the wish list that got eliminated because we have to keep in place. So next year, hopefully, we have the opportunity to have a voice in system, like 2 facilities in the state that have them. Our intent would be when it comes to the facility, go through it, because it's, unfortunately, this is what we're dealing with. It's what society is dealing with. It's not appropriate for it to happen. It's not appropriate to happen. If we can prevent it, much like a lot of things we do restoring, dealing with people who are narcissists and maybe not have to discourage that. It was just financially, we didn't think it was the responsible thing to ask for this issue. I never say saying life saving things, just
My question is, if you think not
this year, but it would potentially one small things next year.
Well, next year, we may have $100,000 in system. So the idea would be try to stabilize your budget so we're not like this all the time. So the thought is, next year we're not paying for $100,000, whatever, we would give the $100,000. The other thing we discussed, like this switchboard, whatever it is, the cost when we start looking at it, just taking it down the road, which is just too much, has actually gone down, because I guess technology is cheaper. And we discussed the same thing. We started looking at this, it's not something new. I mean, originally we started looking at, we were looking but now we're discovering we have bigger issues, how things are coming in, and that's unfortunate, it's just the way it is. But the price of these machines is going up half. We looked at some of the,
Statewide too, that put it in smaller.
I mean, they have some that look like a Ford for $160,000, others that technically have out there, you want quality, but that's where next year, they'll be faced with this again, and we request that. If you disagree with me, I don't say we, but look at the facility, and we look at two things we want, and we have one, it would be increase our medical contract coverage. And capitalize this body scanner. But we can't, you looked at, we raised prices of $100,000.
Oh, yeah.
We looked at getting that medical one, it was $100,000. So we're way off now. We have hope that next year we'll be successful in West Lansing and getting the body scanner. I'm not expecting this to be successful, but I wholeheartedly understand this logic. And if you look at one from this year, we've taken steps because of a pandemic, logically. And we have other issues, anybody familiar with what's going on in the communities, which actually is a drug pandemic. So while we're all willing to take that step, because it's not isolating catching this virus, but doing everything we can right now in mass to address the issues of concern, and look at the numbers of people dying from opioid misuse, they're higher than the numbers of people dying this virus. So I think it's unfortunate we can't address it. I understand our logic. Please understand mine. I just add in. That's my hard side. But anyway, that's all I got.
Any questions? All in favor? All opposed? Anybody got any time?
Just one question. You explained that gas problem that's going on 2023.
The price was cheaper. So what they did is they less using, it made sense, they want money in the oil, and they like the natural gas. And he just took the market and he said, this place, whatever's cheaper, he'll get even. So we lost money each. So some years you might see the oil spent and more, and you see nothing spent on gas. But I was just watching the 4K here, propane is because of all the other eating, I take over here, so I think that's an effect the open market all the oil. Just on the side for you. You look at that on the side.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
Seeing none, we're now voting on the matter as presented. All in favor? Yes.
Thank you, thank you.
Revenues?
That deal because that actually just now on the market last year, excess money that left the deal for this year. So that doesn't show up in the general reserve. That's special.
I guess my concern is whatever it may be, somewhere listed, obviously,
But that's has to be used for the jail, so.
Of course. See it.
Okay.
Some way, year,
Previous year, we still have a reserve deal of $500,000.
It said it's intended to use this KFJ. Capital facilities or what? It's supposed to vote down a motion for $100,000. Is there any kind of plan?
It's,
I think you can use by law, I think it can be used as operational offsets, so that would include anything it takes to operate the jail. So yes.
Can I
Raise board.
Let's hear it.
I'll make a motion to use this for $100,000.
Oh, wait, not about
I'll make
You can make this. Okay. Is there a second? Great.
No.
All right. You probably said for that other question, comment on that.
Well, I want to make sure it's clear that especially this is like taking from the reserve fund and added it to the.
We'll read it, but, sorry. So, would you like to do that?
That is my motion. This will be from the reserve. That's what I spent, and the revenue offset you to use.
So here's the motion. Support of prisoners and $2,000,091 that was done for, like, the understanding that we're going to raise it, expenditures.
My question is, again, are you sure $100,000 is by what you feel is needed? Since talking about, could be a Cadillac, could be a Ford.
I didn't say no, never afford that.
I don't want to go on if any money, we gotta come
What
back.
I would say is, all we've done is initial research over 2 years. We were surprised at how quickly this came down. Then we looked at where we fit in the facility. The first year was buying this monster, we don't do anything. We were encouraged, so we saw that 160 range could get something extremely good. So on that note, we had to figure 100,000. I can tell you that if all of a sudden we get you a field is what's worthwhile, wouldn't spend $75,000 to get field 4. You know what I mean? Just give me my time.
Further questions on this revenue side? We're gonna take
We're
first,
going
and then
to increase the revenue side by $100,000. Then we got to go back and do the total.
Just like you say, this is personal. I'm torn, the like and at the same time, the sheriff makes a good point about goes in and spends all his money, try to protect the people. We can't spend a little bit of money to protect individuals that might do something harmful to themselves. I mean, the struggle is one to protect life. And how can we protect those human life? You can't really care somebody choose something else out. And an epidemic is a disease that just could affect anybody. It's like apples and oranges. But have the money in reserve. And take this from someone who's had a family member who's not an adult, put it in the jail system with adults who never died alive. I certainly think that money is well spent. It's in reserve. So I'll be supporting this motion.
We're going to put another right.
This is what we're going to get things done. Everyone's out of that. So now we need our revenue to 449,974. All the public in favor? Sure, unanimous. All right. Now, Mr. Miller, we're going to the reiteration.
Yes, please. Public safety. That doesn't matter. My motion, I would say, is to have the hours out.
As far as the revenue or the capital? Capital, I see the same thing, we put the $140,000. To anybody that's been involved in this for a while, we have made a habit of, when we budget for something, it's what we do. Never budget to buy balloons, we have to change and buy more balloons, let's buy prisons. So I hope that those, maybe I'm well. I know when I was in the city council, that was a professional experience, I felt that we were already budgeting for something. Why did you have it? Well, I decided,
My motion includes the purchase of a stamp.
I am really glad we found a way to respond to this budget. There is so much oversight that we have. There's only so much we do. Most will utilize with, our sheriff, our like commissioners, but it is very meaningful that this budget committee has constantly get into place so we can respond to try to some and I think that I take both the ongoing COVID and the incredibly seriously and wouldn't want to play one against the other. I think that it's really something I'll be proud of. Our response on what happened in a way that prioritizes the sacred sanctity of everything.
I just like to clarify, I spoke previously, I was was speaking this motion, you want to support. And I wasn't playing one or the other, and I said that, what I was trying to do is say, whatever possibly happened, if you spend $100,000, try to protect the person from that, in comparison to trying to protect public health. So I don't think that one of the other. That's certainly what I intended at least saying, that I think it was the political support to add money is trying, and I don't think it was losing their houses. And people like me run businesses all my life, and have bottom lines, making tables, food on the table for many people. It's a struggle to have to decide what priorities. And just to say, the fact that Mr. Secretary, I can motion, hard to me. And I don't know if this walk around like yours first old, and I don't know. I did have it on down in jail at 60 years old. So this is their first legislation. Ray Morissette was his name. Do you know that? Thank you very much, and I appreciate all your support of this.
Further questions, comments, concerns? All right, all in favor? All those opposed? Motion passes 12-1.
Thank you for the consideration. And just to let you know, this was never approached lately, or on commissioners, because we just figured, we understood what we're doing.
that's our charge. That was $50,000 is our charge deal.
Yeah. And that comes about because of the way you separate from county back in 2008, and then it's always been costs that go to jail for the jail. But being honest with you, they're not increases in the last 5 years.
Well, not talking about cost, the only state that doesn't give everything they take down. But is there any way or shape or form that the state looks at our old budget when they're trying to determine what percentage they should contribute? Or do they just throw, do they ever look at our total budget?
Essentially, what they do is have total amount of state, and now they will take, for their general formula. They'll take the number of visitors, and divide it up that way. So that's one of the reasons why less money this year than we had last year.
So it really has no relationship to our expenses. And that's different, just back to the communication, for example, which is, should be based on cost to operate. Somebody wants to services, they should pay based on percentage of cost to operate. If the state's not looking at what it costs, they just come in with a beds nights or whatever, then it really doesn't have any advantage to us, our charge, turn over to that, that's things, it's just what we can accomplish. Really, let's have a couple of things, let's take a look at your budget's X amount of dollars, percentage of the overall state, and then just give that percentage something. If they started looking at that number, it's very important to increase, and I think that make that number real, cost for it. Other than that, I would say $15,000 cases in England. That's my opinion.
Further discussion? Seeing none, we're voting on asking for contractual IT services available. All those in favor? It is unanimous. And for more our total revenue budget would be $2,600,000 budget, and $800 resulting from the benchmarking, including management agency increase.
That is on our numbers.
Okay. Someone check that. Voted on for separately, the total for that. So, with our original revenues, fall to 2020.
So move.
The last three numbers?
820.
Thank you. Second.
Second. Discussion on the revenue side of the budget. Now, all those in favor? Unanimous. And then we'll go over to the reserves. Yes.
Just related, because I understand $100,000 is going general, how is that's
No, the county reserve, the lost water use here, I was going to match that, down 50, money is any of it, but then the use is to help the rest of the increase it, that's just a general reserve account. That's the first line where I propose to use 250 as an addition as proposed to use the 80. And essentially that back started 4 years ago. But and again, Mr. Jones,
Well, I guess no, is give us reserve account here. You will add revenues, right? Revenues from the estimated surplus. You said 180,000, or rather, 380,000, revenue, that's what we estimated surplus. But then we have reserves. That's not in relation to the reserves, and where this money is coming from?
it's called fund balance.
So we will work the fund balance. Is the county generally fund that off now? Yes, it's what we want to lack and what the fund balance is, I guess I asked for the jail reserve, and we only use it for the jail.
Okay. Fund balance was on your original one, and when I changed it, with the fund balance on there.
Yeah,
And then we used some of the 200,000 this year. And then they created 390,000 for next year.
But that, it's not that,
That brought it to the 81.
Well, that's true.
And this year, and we also don't know what's going to be happening. We're hoping for something, but.
Well, this is good information, right? It really shows how history is, and I think to see this reserve account, see the facility front, buildings and money in. It's up to $1,000 coming on figure, right? Beginning of our budget appropriation.
Surplus versus unbalanced balance, is what you call it two different things, or essentially the same thing.
They are. Surplus is not balance, yes. I think it exists. Somewhere it shows line our undesignated fund balance.
Yes.
Someplace we see in budget.
Right. Any further comments? Your reserve capital, all in favor? Unanimous?
The sheet, the handed out today, was not the only sheet, was the, I got the sheriff's department, the vehicle was, my report, that's another, change. On the capital.
I would be looking at the end of the year they unfortunately don't have anything that's budget for us. I would ask if I actually go back to the commissioners, I would have to fund budget. I'll use an example, the vehicle, actually on capital plan is head cut. That's cut, they're all the cap cemetery and the 5-point plan. I would just those numbers.
Yes, now they can take more.
Okay, that's
we want to see what specifically, and then what those initiatives did was that separate issue.
Yep. Make that mention, back to that way, that He's asking a question, yes,
Anyways, we may not be on that because of the clarification. Last year's conversation, the boilers were tremendously inefficient. And in somewhat danger breaking on us. And not only would replace the boilers, recoup their costs, relative order, but it would also be incredibly more efficient on our mills. So I guess my question is, I can't necessarily say this seems to be one year. I'm really wondering why it's in 2025, which I think anybody who is familiar with other kinds of things would further go as a Mexican reality. So is there a reason that we're not doing this sooner?
This actually, and I think I stated earlier on, but what this is so that it doesn't get lost on the shelf. Since then, we are getting the actual numbers and part of what we're going to be putting in on bond.
Okay. So
those numbers, we're going to realize that this capital land quite frankly is awful. The reason that it is because we have not had the funds or the resources to what we needed to do. And so you keep putting those things in there because you got to do them. They keep going out because some don't have the funds to do them. But we can, and now we've got some realistic quotes that is actually the numbers that we'll put on bond, and so you can see these changes.
Okay, so hypothetically, if we're going to do the numbers on next year, that would include what
That's one of the biggest boilers, cancels and all that stuff, and then the stairs, and then everything that windows as a third one.
Great, I'm all for it.
So clarification, when you say we will see, when is that? Are we talking commissioners or are we talking here, what the budget?
I didn't catch all of it, but I'm
appreciate it.
I'm assuming you're saying the bond issue as we.
That's not bond, when we see revised capital.
Revised capital next year.
Next year.
This year really, sorry, we can have a vote on that because it wasn't really anything on this.
The only saving reason is that the charter says you can't hold it to its own information.
The only thing on next year's budget committee meeting, the commission meeting, we'll have time for us to look at.
That's well, if we're going to do the bond next year, and that's one of the things we'll be seriously looking at. You will all call back in.
First, bring it. Okay, that's what I want. And this time, that's what I mean, during 2022.
All right, I'm going to motion to say that for information. All those in favor? That's unanimous. All right, next on our list is to approve the budget for public hearing, but we've got a couple of things that are still in our current party. So let's go. You need 2005. Knock your year, knock your budget table. Not to legally give us. So this is where they can advertise the extension of the ED and what a 9-1 goes.
You're going to go over and then what was the increase in $25?
Correct. So the whole, for the benefit that and kind of investment. This is, yeah, so we're going to try to revisit it again, so Opposed? Commissioners present out, and one is visiting.
Because there was an amendment. But I would suggest that this Yes.
This strategy, putting money on professional service, and bond, and comparing the able to be able to get professional services if needed.
I recognize the concerns here, but point out one, we don't have our tier two status. We did address this issue here, and so I will be voting for this. I think it is not necessarily. This is your licenses are we talked about this last time, financial implications on business are greatly, like, if you can't put a number to this, just something to get finalized. So if cutting $9,000 out of this, the impact tax that we take based on being finalized, it's gonna have that number over. I don't want to increase the budget, but whatever $160,000 is equalized to get us to that point where we can do something like that. I would say keeping it at $160,000 is scary and manageable. So I'll go against this as well.
Yeah. I need to ask department head, if this was the bare bones, if there was anything else that we're doing or anyone like that, and our IT director said this was the lowest amount of self-confidence going. So I'm going to have to do it as well.
And I just say, the ice cube sheet, everybody can say the same, but I've just seen for the last 10 years in government budgets, running straight. And it just like whatever it is, you gotta pay it, okay, it's on the side off. Many years, city, county, we gotta somebody's gonna come in, how do you control this? It can't be that expensive, those kinds of things, year over year, on top of the, salary wages. Right now, we can't compare throughout the county or anything, just like that. It's a high time, so you know, take out the employee salaries and then the budget, that's the cost, that's 75% of salaries, can't touch it. Now the salaries and IT, we can't touch it, we can touch it. We don't stop the overall line in IT. It's just not very clear as to that.
Mr. Wright?
That's the answer to your question, in my opinion. In order to prevent the increase in IT, being back in days of our operator, and that would do TVs. Everything is driven now, and there are malicious activities of people from more countries, he said, for years, in our system. Everything there, so, we can't talk about a lot more than that, like this, not caring, what's necessary to avoid potential of malicious.
Mr. Ponte?
I totally agree. This saw recently, the Finance Committee, which is having a Zoom meeting. Yeah, I agree.
I just like to answer Mr. question. Would we control the maintenance, but that's when we stop. It's sad, you know, so many, all the different regions. How much money must cost that cost those companies? Or just security issues, as far as states are hacking now, organized crime hacking now. You know, I mean, there's just so many. It's what I get back to all the time. It's spending smart, not put that money there, especially when you look at we've been running on a shoestring in the past, having our maintenance director serve both functions. So the money that's being spent in the past was basically we were getting off easy. So the increase isn't as large as it looked because basically getting W out of it. So I think that's well spent and ready if we don't have to have anything coming down when it comes to everybody out there trying to get our money or just blow our network for whatever reason just because they can.
Mr. Ward?
We're a soft target.
I don't agree with any of the points that you got to move forward on this, and specifically the number of reason because we believe that it's subsidizing other traditional budget.
Just really, I mean, my point is not so much whether he consulted and hire something that was definitely knowledge. But in just an example of how they save money, and I here is not trying to save money, just go along and pay the bill. And certain contractors, let's never say, okay, definitely, but when I was in business, we had, might have 150 laptops. They didn't have a service contract on one anyway. Because they set up the system, but it backed up, and if you would crash, they had backed up, and you would do it done. And they ended up saving 50% on their service costs for a laptop. I just don't know what I'm thinking about how we just throw money in. And it just seems to me that's what happens. And maybe they don't government, they're trying to private business, they just trying to private business, find ways to save money and make it work. We don't think we think, okay, so let's reinvent the wheel, spend more money and not be tough.
I'm just trying to also, it was also quick. Like I said about COVID, and that's all I'm trying now. But this is not enough, companies or the state, for instance, has to protect people's social security. Businesses have to protect people's credit card numbers. When they don't sue, household issues. That's something your business probably didn't have to worry about. So that's the difference.
I want to see what's wrong with it.
Okay.
He would have given here. We will.
Andy got me fired up there from Actually, it is because for this purpose, budget committee, they go to check, modify, and invite. But the approval will go up to its members. Just doing the.
Favor?